The slide design on the M&P Competitor didn't leave a ton of options for aftermarket porting for the people that are interested in that. As with most things though, Floyd's Custom Shop stepped in and saved the day. I'm Mike, this is 360 Tactical Solutions, and today we are going to compare the Floyd's Custom Shop porting versus stock to see which one works better. As always though, let's go ahead and game that YouTube algorithm. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what are your thoughts on the M&P 2.0 Competitor. Now there's a certain level of debate over whether or not side ports actually do anything for a gun other than dump all of the muzzle velocity. In essence, that's what we're here to test today. We have the Garmin Chronograph over there. We're going to shoot, I don't know, a couple of mags, test the velocity. Then we're going to swap over to the Mantis so that we can test the actual muzzle rise. Then I'll go ahead and compare the two and kind of decide, are we actually getting real reduction in muzzle rise with the side ports, or are we just dumping every bit of velocity that the round has? For today's testing, I'm using 115 grain RBS ammo. I use these guys because they're local. This stuff is priced just right, and it's always been reliable for me. Now, I'm not 110% sure what the velocity rating on this is, but it doesn't matter because we're going to test the velocity with a stock barrel that hasn't been cut versus the ported barrel and just compare it and see what the drop off is. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this Garmin set up and then we'll get started. So for the velocity testing, we're going to start out with the stock barrel. This is actually an Apex barrel because, well, nobody does it better than Apex. So one of the things that can be somewhat frustrating with this Garmin Chronograph is that you have to wait a couple of seconds between shots for it to go ahead and analyze the velocity before it resets for the next shot. These things are great though. They're compact, they're extremely accurate, and very easy to use. If you're interested in a Garmin Chronograph or anything else that is super cool that I can't leave links to here on YouTube, make sure that you hit the link down in the description to my website. I'll have all kinds of information and promo codes to all kinds of great stuff down there. So this is the stock barrel that I sent off to Floyd's to be ported. Let's go ahead and test that velocity. All right, that went pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and break this all down, get the Mantis out, set it up, and we'll start testing muzzle rise. All right, it is recoil time, and if you don't already know about the Mantis system, not only can it measure and display things like recoil, but there are also a ton of different training options within the app, whether it is live fire or dry fire. This is probably one of the best training tools that you as a firearms owner can have. Again, link down below to my website. You can check this out. Definitely recommend this for anybody out there that wants to get better at shooting. I'm going to start out with that Apex barrel. I'm going to do, I got 2 mags loaded up with 15 rounds. I'm going to go ahead and test the recoil with those, and then I'm going to swap over to the ported barrel, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Two more mags to go. Now we've got the Floyd's Custom Shop Enforcer style porting on the M&P 2.0 Competitor. Let's go ahead and test some recoil. All right, I have a few more mags loaded up here. I'm gonna go ahead and do some shooting just for fun and then reposition out of the direct sunlight, and we'll go ahead and go over the numbers. Let me start out by saying the Competitor doesn't have a ton of recoil to begin with. You know, it is a 5-inch barrel. It is fairly well balanced. So it's, you know, it's not like it kicks like a mule or is super snappy. It's just that so many people right now are interested in ported guns or having their guns ported. And you can see that because now Smith & Wesson is offering multiple ported versions of their standard guns. Springfield kind of kicked that off with, you know, the Hellcat Pro, as well as the, well, now the Springfield Echelon, the Prodigy. You know, so many guns out there have a ported and non-ported version because that's what consumers want. Because of the slide design on this M&P, there's really no room for top ports. And I feel like Smith & Wesson kind of did that on purpose. They put these 2 cuts in at the top, so you really can't port the top without, you know, messing with the structural integrity of this slide. That's kind of the beauty of the Floyd's Custom Shop porting, having the 3 ports on each side of the barrel that match up perfectly with the already cut holes in this slide. I'm pretty much the worst case scenario when it comes to recoil. I've said a bunch of times in my videos before that I have struggled with carpal tunnel for, I don't know, 25 years or so, and just recently found out that I'm starting to get arthritis in my hands. Getting old sucks. I do not recommend it. That being said, if you run the exact same tests, you obviously may come up with different results than what I do. I have my good and bad days when it comes to grip strength, and today I'm somewhere in the middle or so, I'd say. First off, let's go ahead and go over those recoil numbers from the Mantis. Pull those up real quick here. I did 2 strings of 15 rounds with the Apex barrel, and on my first set of tests with the Apex barrel, my average muzzle rise was 6.44 degrees, which isn't too terribly bad. My second set was 5.13 degrees. Obviously that first set was, I don't know, more or less a warm-up, kind of getting used to shooting today. I haven't shot in like 2 weeks, so I had to kind of get back in the groove. But that second round was 5.13 degrees. When I look at the Floyd's Custom Shop porting for this gun, the first set was 3.58 degrees, whereas the second set was 2.72 for an average. So if we're going with, you know, the lowest of the two averages, we're looking at 2.72 for the ported version versus 5.13 for the non-ported version. So obviously, when it comes to recoil reduction, the port from Floyd's Custom Shop, even though these holes are on the sides of the barrels, it's definitely performing better. That's not me saying, you know, it feels one way or another. That is data that is somewhat scientific, collected from the Mantis system. So that part can't really be argued. Now the question is, when it comes to the reduction of recoil, is that reduction of recoil coming from blowing out all of your velocity, or is it actually working against the recoil of the gun? That's where the Garmin Chronograph comes in. The Garmin Chronograph was expensive. It stung a little bit having to buy that, but you know, for tests like this, I got to do what I got to do. Now, for the Apex barrel, I averaged 1149.4 feet per second with that RBS ammo. The maximum out of the rounds that I shot was 1190. So we're looking at an average of 1149.4 versus the Floyd's port, which averaged at 1133.8 and maxed out at 1161.1. What that gives us is a difference of 16 feet per second, which honestly, 16 feet per second, as far as an average goes, isn't really a difference. As far as I'm concerned, the reduction in recoil for the Floyd's porting 100% has nothing to do with velocity drop off. And that's a big argument that people make about porting, is that, you know, porting is like snake oil or whatever. The only reason that you're seeing a reduction in recoil is because you're losing all of your velocity. And I think that argument can be made with certain porting. I've seen port jobs out there that I wouldn't doubt if you're losing 100 feet per second. But in this case, we're only losing 16 feet per second for that reduction in muzzle rise. And honestly, I think it's worth it. The only downside there, of course, is the gun does get considerably dirtier and the volume level is much louder. Another big advantage to doing this particular port job is that all you really have to do is take your barrel, ship it over to Floyd's Custom Shop. They can cut it, send it right back to you. It's relatively inexpensive and fast, and it actually works. Today, as far as I'm concerned, I think that we have proven that Floyd's Custom Shop porting for the M&P Competitor works, and it works efficiently without losing too much muzzle velocity. Now, if you want more information about Floyd's or how to have your competitor ported, make sure to hit that link down below to my website, where I will have all of that information readily available for you. That's it. That's all I got today. We proved that Floyd's porting works. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go home and just relax for the rest of the weekend. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you back here real soon.